I told you that the 6th Thrawn book, or the 3rd Thrawn Ascendancy book, was one of my favorite Star Wars books ever, because from start to finish, the stakes were immediately on display.
Yeah.
We end the 2nd book of the Ascendancy trilogy with Jigstis basically coming this close to starting a civil war within the Chiss Ascendancy and kind of succeeding to some extent. So my first question for you is, did I, Jason style, oversell the 6th Thrawn book, or did you appreciate it as much as I did?
Oh, I loved it.
I get super stoked about stuff, and then my friends always give me shit because they say I oversell things. It's just a fact. I don't know what to tell you.
No, you did not oversell it. We'll talk after the show. Okay? I'm just kidding. No, I swear to you, you did not oversell it, and I did absolutely love it. I mean, so per usual, spoilers. We'll jump to the very, very end of the book, which obviously was the keystone of the book, which is essentially Thrawn giving up his entire life to serve the Chiss. And to kind of rewind a little bit, during the Empire series, we see Thrawn on multiple occasions get asked by Palpatine, hey, are you serving me? And Thrawn says yes. And I don't think Thrawn is really untruthful almost in any aspect, but I think he was being untruthful to Palpatine.
Oh, his loyalties are 100% with the Chiss.
100% with the Chiss. And what was so cool
He's manipulating Palpatine.
He's manipulating Palpatine. And essentially, Thrawn's probably the only person in the universe that I can think of where like he can infiltrate the entire Empire, which is greedy and just an entire powerhouse led by a crazy person, Palpatine, and actually like be able to partially control a situation, which is incredible. And towards the end of the 3rd book in the Ascendancy series, we see Thrawn truly talk about his motivation, which is to serve the Chiss at any cost, is what he says. And we see that being lived out to the point where he was the greatest admiral that the Chiss had seen, right? And he is willing to give up his entire legacy in order to essentially be exiled and still serve the Chiss, whom people were turning against him. It's just the way that book was written was incredibly it was so, what's the word? It was, it
was well planned.
It was well planned, yeah.
Because, and this is where, because for instance, I'm in the 4th book on my 2nd time through, and Thrawn basically at one point is hashing out with Aralani his plan to beat Yiv the Benevolent.
Right.
And at one point, like, she goes, like, you realize, like, because what he ends up doing, if you remember, is he sends the old Vac ship back to Crimea with Thalius and Cheery in it, and they basically say to the Vax, like, hey, we're sorry we lost this ship, we apologize. But then there's like a secret message that they're delivering that's basically like telling the Vax, like, hey, like, don't join the Nick Cardoon Destiny.
Right.
Like, let's beat Yiv instead.
Yeah.
It's like that whole thing. Well, in the process, he's putting a Skywalker at risk, which is a huge deal within the Chiss Ascendancy. And at one point, like, Aralani's like, this is like a terrible, like, this could work, but if it doesn't, like, you're screwed. And like, and Thrawn basically says back to Aralani, he goes like, I don't care what happens to me as long as we win.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, if we win, then that means that the Nick Cardoon won't conquer Chiss space, and that will save Chiss lives, and that's all that matters.
Right, and that's all that matters. Thrawn is a very much so big picture person.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And he is, at his core, it's funny because I've been kind of obsessed with this particular genre lately. To the point where my wife and I are the blue alien genre.
Yeah, Jason is always down for blue alien.
No, so the I guess you could call it the detective genre,
like
where
Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, so my wife and I, Carly and I, are currently in our 2nd time through, or I should say first rewatch of the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock Holmes series, which if you haven't watched, you have to watch because
let's watch them together.
They're extremely entertaining.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Thrawn if Thrawn was a little bit more of an egomaniac and an asshole. Because Sherlock is definitely a prick. But like at the same time, he does have goodness in him, and at his core, but at his core, like Sherlock's like motivation is good. Like he's a douchebag for justice. You know what I mean? Like it's
you're right. You're right.
And like that's kind of Thrawn is like. There are these scenes where
douchebag for justice.
well, there's like
that
when,
just hit me, Jay. That was so funny.
Well, like when what's his name, the Cadet Vanto.
Yeah.
Like
Eli
like there's
Vanto.
when Vanto is with the Chiss and then he's all disappointed because Thrawn doesn't give him enough love when they see each other again,
Yeah.
and like Thrawn definitely isn't as outwardly douchey as Sherlock, but there is like a thing where it's like he's kind of emotionally numb in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But like at his core, like his moral compass is so loyal and true.
Right.
That at his core, like everything he does is actually very selfless.
True.
And like he almost is like, I'm weaponizing my talents towards serving the greater good.
Well, and Thrawn's the guy who's like, no, I want to be in charge. Not because he's like cocky or arrogant or because he's seeking power. He's like, no, I want to be in charge because I'm the best there is. Like,
exactly.
That's honestly his belief, and that's honestly the truth. Let's talk about Skywalkers a little bit, because in book 2, I mean, in all the books. In the Ascendancy books, the Skywalkers play a huge role in it, but in the last pod that we did for book number 2, we didn't really even talk about Skywalkers really, which when I was thinking back on it, I thought it was kind of odd. Skywalkers are such an interesting aspect in the Ascendancy books, because if you really think about it, they really don't need Skywalkers. Right, because they have the
they can go jump by jump, or they can go pay people from the Navigators Guild or things along those lines. Yeah,
and there's still a lot to be learned about the Navigators Guild, and I don't know how loyal they would be to Chiss, all that stuff. Blah blah.
I think
blah.
that's what it is. I think it's about their secrecy.
Yeah, but then they really, what was cool about the third book is they like did a deep dive into the torment that those young girls essentially go through and their families, because they get taken away from their families. They essentially get brainwashed into forgetting all of their past, and then they dedicate their lives to serving the Chiss Ascendancy, and they have zero choice about it.
Well, they literally wipe their memories. I mean, like that's a major plot point in the book you just read, which is when Mithaeli Astov gets to, I think it's I can't remember what his name is, but the guy who becomes the patriarch of the myth, when she goes up to him and basically is like, hey, like, I know what you do to Skywalkers. I will rat you out, basically, if you don't help me. And of course, the patriarch dude is just like, well, that's not going to work out anyway for you. Like if this happened, it would actually be detrimental to the whole Chiss Ascendancy. Would you really want to do that? And of course, Mithalius is her moral compass like corrects her off of that path, so she just pulls a gun on him. But it's
you're right.
it is an interesting thing, because like there's, I mentioned earlier like the planning from Timothy Zahn, and it's very clear from when the beginning of when he set out on this journey to write these 6 books that he really took the time, unlike Kathleen Kennedy with the sequel trilogy, to thoroughly plan out the 6 books, because there are specific things that are consistent throughout all the books. Like the idea that Thrawn was exiled for preemptive strikes was literally mentioned in the very first book, when he was with the Empire. When they asked him, "Hey, why'd you get exiled?" They literally open the first book with that meeting that ends the 6th book,
where he's on
trial. And there's a lot of stuff there. But one of the big things is the Chiss Ascendancy is an interesting alien race, because they're kind of like, I don't even know what I would describe them as, because it's not like Sparta, like it's not like a militaristic society, but what they are is they're very nationalist.
They're very nationalist.
Yeah, like they do not believe in having allies, and they believe in hiding everything about themselves, and they also don't believe in conquering. Like they have their ascendancy, and they have a policy which is basically like, we will never expand. Yeah. But we're going to protect our shit at all costs, and no one's ever going to know, and no one's ever going to know anything about us. Right. And like they are a very fickle people,
They are.
without a doubt.
Well, and that was kind of cool too, because in the Empire series, right, we look at the Chiss as being this perfect alien race, which is super super strong, right? And Thrawn, yes, he mentions the fact that there was some fracturing occurring on his way out. And I forget the scene. Who was he talking to? Was it Skywalker? Was it? There's a scene in the book in the Empire series where he's talking about how when he left the Ascendancy, there was like almost a civil war happening.
Yeah, no, he straight up says like, when I left, it was a time of turmoil for my people, and the family politics were becoming a major problem.
And it was cool to do a deep
more
dive
planning,
in that.
by the way.
And more planning. And it was cool to see like the deep dive into what is the Chiss, because when you first meet the Chiss, really what the most we learn about the Chiss is Eli Vanto's perceptions and legacy and stories of the Chiss, which was like a perfect alien race who are super super smart and cunning and always won no matter what. And we find out that, and then we see Thrawn who does all of that, right? But then we see Thrawn's peers, the other Chiss, and we're like, oh my gosh, like actually they have a lot of issues. Right, like Thrawn by far is probably the most intelligent character that we see in all of the books, and so it was really cool to see the Chiss and all of their issues. But despite that, they're still like by far like the leading alien race in the chaos.
Well, there's actually a scene in the book that I'm reading right now, which is the first of the Ascendancy trilogy, where Ar'alani straight up asks Thrawn. She goes like, "I never." They're dealing with the Garwians and. It's a long story, but basically Thrawn's only mess ups, like where he actually was wrong, that are on record in his storyline, are the two rebels mess ups at the end of season 3 and at the end of season 4.
The word is the Bendu.
The Bendu, yes. The one, when our memories
Pogles,
fail us,
right?
And Purgles,
Pogles.
yeah, Pogo sticks, Purgle sticks. So the Purgles and the Bendu, but then they keep referencing in all of the Ascendancy books this issue with the Garwians where Thrawn was wrong, and basically where he was wrong is what happened was he helped the Garwians against Leo Aoyan pirates, and Ar'alani told him like not to help them. But he did. And as it turned out, what he did is he gave the Garwians tactical information that the Garwians used to conquer the Leo Aoyans. And actually straight up just attacked and conquered it. Like literally at one point they're like Ar'alani's like, you have 6 worlds, and he's like, we might have 7 soon. And like he straight up like just says like, yeah, we're gonna conquer these dudes.
That's so funny.
Like the point, like that Thrawn's biggest mistake in a weird way was he helped a ship that was in trouble against pirates. It just turned out that he gave them information that allowed that people to conquer the other people, which was like this whole thing.
Yeah.
But like that is a consistent theme, throughout the books, is like the Chiss are very reserved. It's like, we never will attack anybody. We will never participate in any, like that was the thing is like Thrawn wasn't even allowed to calm up those people and be like, hey, this is how you beat them. Like they do not want to interfere with any sort of interspecies conflict outside in the chaos. But in the it's funny because in the book that I'm reading, Ar'alani and Thrawn are talking right before the Garwian incident. So they're on the planet with the Garwians when they find out that they're actually conquering the Leo Aoyans. And then Ar'alani and Thrawn are like, what? Because they're actually jamming their communications, this whole thing. I just literally listened to the scene today. And Ar'alani at one point literally goes like, I never thought of them as people. And, and Thrawn's like, what do you mean? And she's like I always just thought of them as like highly intelligent animals. She's referring to the other animals of the the other aliens of the chaos. And I'm like, is this like the Star Wars version of racism?
No,
and then and then literally Thrawn's like, I always just viewed them as assets, like allies or enemies.
Yeah.
You're like, well, this
assets.
is we're deeply analytical.
Yes. No, I totally agree. Like there is actually a lot of okay, we're not gonna go down this path. So all I'm gonna say is, even in, I call it the Empire series. Is that cool?
Yeah, it's fine. Like, Empire series, Ascendancy series.
Yeah, and so Thrawn, everyone's racist against Thrawn because he's the only alien. He's the only non-human that's in the.
A lot of racism in Star Wars.
Yeah, it's casual.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really liked too, that I want to touch base on, is the epicness. I hate the word epic. When's the last time you heard me use the word epic?
It's been a while.
I've like never said it. Like it coming out of my mouth hurt, but like literally these space battles were truly that, right?
There's
like,
so many of them in that book.
There's so many of them, and they're witty. Like, and we see so many cool features of space battles. Like, for example, throughout the Ascendancy series, we see asteroids that are actually like floating stations that house like a rocket
giant
launcher.
missiles. Yeah.
And then
that was one of the most intense scenes in that third book.
Oh,
was when what's her name? The chick from the Clar.
Yeah.
Who like drives her ship right in front of the missile.
I forget her name. I know. And then we also see the difference between like lasers and we see the like plasma spheres, right? We see breacher
missiles, static barriers, which are not the same, electrostatic barriers, which are not the same as shields.
Yeah. And then what else did we see? Diggers?
Yeah, which are basically countermeasures.
Yeah.
What are they called? I
think
it's diggers or daggers, something like that. But they're like, I'm trying to remember what exactly they are, but aren't they something they send out in front of the missiles to stop things from destroying?
I think so.
I think what they do is divers.
Divers.
Yeah.
That's what.
And what they do is they turn plasma spheres. They cause them to lose their form, and so that they just dissipate.
Yeah. And then the Chiss also have their weapon where they like fire out, and then it has like the acid in it, right?
That's the breacher
Those
missile.
are the breacher missiles, right? Okay.
And they also have the nets. So they can fire out like a net that like catches ships.
Yeah. So like we see
Lots
this
of cool
insight
weapons,
into like really cool weapons, but not only that, but how the books are written, it feels like a true chess match is happening during these battles. So
and that was peak Timothy Zahn too, because some of the space battles are a little cheesy in the early Ascendancy stuff. No, I shouldn't say cheesy, but a little bit like less thought's been put into it. Like peak Timothy Zahn is that 6th book because every single one of those fights is really
solid.
good.
Yeah.
So we have to, before we call it, we have to talk about Jixus's plan because I thought it was really interesting.
This is such a cool character.
So
do you like him? Do you think he's a dope character?
Yeah, of course.
I
thought he was a little dumb at the end of that book.
Really?
When he fell right into Thrawn's plan.
Yeah.
But I overall I viewed him as a believable and intimidating villain.
Okay. Remind me, I'm going to have a question for you. So carry on.
So early in the Ascendancy trilogy, really early in the original trilogy, they talk a lot about Chiss family politics. And we kind of learned through the books that like each family is constantly vying for different economical advantages and military advantages. Like we know the Arizi are heavily in the military. We know the Myth are actually the strongest family out of all of them in terms of their overall standing. There's a lot of different. We know that the Stybla used to be the one family, and then they actually brought the other 9 up and then dropped down into the 40. And like there's all these different things. We learned a lot about the family politics. Well, what Jixtus basically does, which is super fascinating, is he basically makes a deep fake of he creates and manufactures a bunch of fake ships.
Right.
And if I remember correctly, he doesn't put there's something that he does that like gives it away that they're fake. I can't remember exactly what it is. I think it has to do with the
like
symbols, the sigils,
yeah,
are like either inaccurate or missing or something like that.
Right.
But he basically puts together
I think he duplicated the exact striping of a ship that shouldn't have ever been duplicated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like one of the family ships that was in this deep fake has like a different design on every single ship, whereas like
the whole entire family, each family has like a hand painted design, right?
Exactly. Yeah. They like hand paint their ships. And yet in this military exercise, like there were like multiple ships from that family that had the same design.
Right.
And that was like the dead giveaway that it was fake. But this fake video basically Jixtus basically goes to each family and basically like shows them the video and is like, hey, by the way, they're planning to attack you. Like I have all these ships that you can use if you want. And essentially like most of them are like, screw you, go away. But then like a couple of the families are like, and I think it's the Oofsar. It might not be the Oofsar. I'm trying to remember which specific family. One of the families basically is.
You're
it's the Clar.
Mesmerizing me right now with you're just throwing out Chiss family names left and right. Like this is incredible.
I think it's the Clar. So the Clar are the ones that end up buying in with Jixtus, and like the Clar patriarch is like down.
Just we are Jixtus
like we are
friends.
Jixtus's friends, and there's that cool scene where they find like Jixus's fleet basically in the asteroid field.
Right.
One of my favorite scenes in that entire book was at the beginning. when the what was the alien race where they're like obsessed with enlightenment?
Oh,
Do you remember?
the enlightened
Illumin? The
Illumin.
Kilji.
The Kilji
Illumin, yeah.
Kilji
So the
Illumin.
Kilji Illumin are
Yeah.
basically like the new Nick Ardoon in this third book where
They're
they're
the
working
worst.
for Jixtus
So annoying.
and like basically though like at one point the Kilji Illumin guy like goes to Jixtus and is like, "Hey, screw you, man. Like I'm going to enlighten you."
Oh,
and then
yeah, this is cool.
and then he's like, "Actually, go to these coordinates." And he like pops out of hyperspace in these coordinates and there's like a massive shatter class I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's the Fate Spinner.
The Fate Spinner.
Yeah, and it's called the Fate Spinner. It's this massive warship, and it's like sitting there, and he's like, "This is the Fate Spinner," and he's like, "And I've got dozens of these,
Right.
So
What are you going to do
just
about
kindly go back to doing what I asked you to do." Like, and Jixtus is truly like a intimidating, and it's what's kind of interesting too because he kills himself at the end of the
Right.
of the book. It's very clear that within the Grysk, like he was sent to be the guy who was in charge of conquering the Chiss.
Right.
But like it's clear that like there's a lot of people that are even above him.
Which
and that's
is
what
crazy to
that's
think
what makes the Grysk like a super interesting.
Yeah.
So that let's just end on that then. So do you think the Grysk make a compelling enough villain to center something like an Ahsoka series around?
I would hope so.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Oh, I would hope so. So
Do you think the books are too off the beaten path to just present that as the villain in a live action show and have people buy in?
like our wives watching it, Elena and Carly, do you think like they would just be like, well, who the hell are these Grysk? I don't think so, because long story short, I think the way that movies are going now is very like Marvel's-esque and just like whatever happens and whatever we want goes, and who cares if we bring in some alien race that no one knows about, like, right? So like to the general public, I don't think anyone would be surprised, and I think that the Grysk are compelling enough to put into like an actual like TV series or even like put into the movies someday. I think the idea of the Grysk as like a superpower in the chaos, I think is very much so compelling enough to make them mainstream.
There's an interesting element to the Grysk too that makes them different, and it's something I appreciate about just like getting away from the mistakes that Star Wars made before, where there's this idea where when the Grysk are originally brought up by Darth Vader, when Thrawn is with Darth Vader in the second book of the first trilogy,
Yeah.
there's like this thing where the Vader's like, who are the Grysk? And Thrawn goes
Right.
like, well, it's told that they have enough ships to blot out the stars, and they have a nomadic culture and all these things. But then Thrawn later on goes like, actually, it's far more likely that they do have a home planet,
Right.
and that they don't have massive forces, that they rather have like unorthodox tactics and weapons, and
Yeah.
this is how they do it. And that's what's kind of interesting about them is they are different. And like the way that I would do it, if I was trying to introduce the Grysk, is whatever Ahsoka that show is, or whatever show it is that they decide to bring the Grysk out in live action, if they do, is you just open with some sort of society that has been brought to their knees by a Grysk
I see.
soldier. So like, for instance, like if it's, they stole this sacred something, or, they captured a bunch of our Skywalkers,
Right.
or whatever it is that they do. And
That's how you introduce.
They need to demonstrate early on that the fear with the Grysk is that they find your most vulnerable
Right.
thing, and they grab a hold on that, and they use that to manipulate.
And then they
you.
literally use you as what's called a client species.
Yeah, you're a client species. You're literally like you serve them.
Crazy
Yeah.
idea. Yeah. So Justix was a really cool character. I thought it was awesome. I didn't think that the way that he died was distracting. I actually liked the way that final scene came about, because at some point Thrawn needed to win, right? And the way that he did win was very intelligent. And then it was really cool and powerful, I thought, to see him right before his death, before he essentially self-destructed his ship, to like actually see him be vulnerable, right? As just Jixtus, right? So I thought it was
Well, he
cool.
was like wounded.
He was wounded. He was like actually in pain. He was like dying, right? So like that was like really cool because he's
Kiloria Vulanduwalan just unloaded.
Yeah, I know, of all people.
Right on Jix's
I know, of all people. Because he's so stoic. And I'm still dying to know what the Grysk look like.
Oh, me too. But I think that's part of like the mystery that surrounds them. That's kind of cool. All right, last question, and then we'll call it.
All right.
I already feel very passionately about my specific answer to this, but I want to hear yours first. Does the mission that Supreme Admiral Jafosk and General Bakif send Thrawn on to the Empire, does that mission make sense?
I'm going to say yes.
I think it's resoundingly yes.
Yeah.
If you really think about what we just saw in Bad Batch. The Empire is snatching up systems by dropping off governors and just using military force. They are a very different entity than the Galactic Republic was. Like at a certain point,
they know they have a really strong leader that, whatever they say goes.
Yeah, like literally a dictator.
Yeah.
And the Chiss Ascendancy is in this awkward position where from the chaos around them is the Grysk are obviously going to come back in some capacity. And then you've got the Galactic Empire that's expanding. And as we know, Palpatine in particular was very interested in the unknown regions, which is a big part of why he was interested in Thrawn.
Right.
And so I actually think it makes a ton of sense. And I think sending Thrawn to go manipulate the Empire, and Palpatine in particular, to thinking he was an ally so that he can get a really good feel for that. I mean, he basically actively tried to fight against the Death Star.
No, you're right.
Know?
And the bridge with that is, so like if you're just looking at it from like a really far distance, it's just like, okay, so all of a sudden the Chiss are just going to get rid of their best military mind and just send them off, and like that's what it looks like. And it's like, well, that's really convenient leading into the other books and having Thrawn's origin story. But then it's so much more than that, because throughout those books too, Timothy Zahn does such a good job fostering Thrawn's knowledge of what is the Empire, and he does that through Anakin, and that's one of the reasons why it works so well. Yeah, too. So
well, and Arlani straight up says to him, like in the second book, when in the third book when they're dealing with the Grysk, that's when they're dealing with the Grolux messing with Project Stardust.
Oh yeah.
Which you're gonna enjoy that one a lot the second time around.
Yeah.
But like Arlani like straight up says to Thrawn, like, we need you. Like, come home. Like, shit's hitting the fan. The families are separating. Like, we literally see in the second book that there's a Chiss ship that's hanging out with the Grysk. Like, there's a lot of stuff happening.
Despicable.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it's probably Clar. Those damn Clar.
But
like like Arlani is straight up like you got to come back. And Thrawn says to her like, nope, still got work to do here.
Yeah.
Like and Thrawn, you always just know has like a view of the bigger picture.
For sure.
All right, guys, that is all we have for today. As always, we sincerely appreciate your support, and we will see you next week.
Thanks a lot.